One of the things that we've learned over the last 15 years or so at RFI is that when it comes to consumer behaviour, it takes an awful lot to shift it in any way that's not steady and prolonged. And I think what's happened in the last 12 to 15 months with the pandemic has really provided that catalyst for a step change in consumer behaviour. It's changed the way that consumers pay, it's changed the way that consumers bank, and to an extent it's changed their whole views around the digital economy. On the one hand, we had far more consumers avoiding cash. We had a lot of consumers that were unwilling to touch a physical currency, and on the other hand, we had merchants that had decided not to accept cash. And the benefit there was obviously from an electronic payment perspective, we saw a lot more card usage with debit, a significant beneficiary. But we also saw a change in the way people use cards from a physical point of presence perspective. We saw contactless card usage uplift. Even in markets where contactless usage was already high, we saw 10% or more uplift in the proportion of consumers using their debit or credit card in a contactless way. We also saw changes in the way people banked. Inevitably, people weren't able to walk to branches, and what we saw was that mobile became the preeminent channel in many of the markets that we cover. I think the question is, what does the knock-on effect of that digital focus? One of the things that we've seen has been a greater trust in digital-only providers. In fact, the proportion of consumers across Western markets that are now comfortable with a digital-only provider as their main financial institution has increased quite significantly. And we're now well over 40% of consumers feeling very comfortable with that situation. I think the question that remains is this long term? Is this behaviour something that's going to carry on, or are we going to revert back to type post-pandemic? Some of it will be long term, and I believe it's going to come down to a couple of different factors. On the one hand is habit. Have I done these things for long enough to form a habit within my behaviour? And on the other hand is utility. Can I do the things that I really want to do in this new way of doing things in a way that's sufficient for my needs? And ultimately, if the answer to those two is yes, then we will continue to see these trends post-pandemic. If the answer is no, then consumers will revert back to traditional forms of handling payments or doing their banking.